Hi, my name is Rowan Particle, and in this video we will be looking at how you can use Symlabs Virtual Directory Server or LDAP Proxy to consolidate data that is stored across multiple repositories by using a virtual tree. By building a virtual tree where all authentication data is properly consolidated, it will be possible to provide a single point of access against which your applications will be able to authenticate. For demonstration purposes, let's consider that we are working with an organization called My Company. The company has three primary directories: an active directory server which contains information about managers working within the organization, a Sun directory server which stores information about general staff, and finally an OpenDS directory which is used by the accounting department. The company is also in the process of developing an intranet site that will need access to the information stored within these directories for a variety of purposes, including authentication. Let's start out by looking at the intranet application. If authentication data for different groups within the organization is stored across multiple repositories, the first hurdle will be providing some method to determine which backend repository should be used. So if the directories are stored on different servers, a user logging into the intranet application would need to select the appropriate login resource and enter the correct server details. In the real world, it is unlikely that you would have this sort of flexibility or complexity in the login form for any application. In this case, because we are actually developing the application ourselves, we can accommodate the possibility of authenticating against multiple repositories. In order to simplify the login form, we might hard-code various options, but it would be important to remember that either way, we will have a trade-off. Either the login form will be difficult to use, or we will make it more difficult to handle future changes to the underlying data infrastructure. One approach to solving this problem would be to consolidate the different repositories using a virtual directory. This would mean that the login form would not need to be aware of the different backend servers used across the organization. To do this, we will create a virtual tree and attach the branches from each of the servers to different mount points within the tree. Let's open a configuration and see how this might be done. First, we will need to attach our three directories as separate server groups within the output section of the configuration. So here we can see that the details of the accounting directory have been provided within the accounting server group, the details for the Sun Enterprise directory have been entered in the general staff server group, and the details for the active directory have been entered in the managers server group. Incidentally, each server group is configured to make use of a connection pool to improve the efficiency of the solution by actually holding a number of connections to the backend servers open all of the time. The more interesting part of the configuration is stored in the input section. Here we have created a listener, and we can see that it has been configured to listen on port 3890 of this system. But more importantly, under the routing parameters, the instance is configured to use a virtual tree instead of a default server group. If we expand the listener configuration further, we will see that a virtual entry route has been defined for the virtual tree, with the DN DC equals my company, DC equals com. Under the root node, a virtual entry has been created as an organizational unit to contain the different branches from each of the backend servers. So if we expand this node, we can see the different mount points have been created on the virtual tree. As you can see, each mount point is configured to attach to a specific DN stored on one of the server groups. With this basic configuration, we will be able to access data from each of the backend servers as if it is stored in one place. Let's run this configuration instance and see what it does. We'll use an LDAP browser to access the virtual tree so that we can see what it looks like. Any LDAP browser will do, and in fact you can use the built-in browser that comes with Virtual Directory Server or LDAP Proxy. Alternatively, you might want to use JExplorer or even LDAP Search on the command line. Just point the browser at the virtual tree base DN and connect. And here you can see that our virtual tree is structured in a similar way to our configuration. Here are each of the mount points that we defined in the configuration. If we expand these, we can see the entries listed under each mount point. Now, if we go back to our intranet application, we could opt to set up our login page so that the staff at my company only need to know which branch they belong to, and we can authenticate against this. Let's try and log in with the username abacon. who happens to work in the accounting department. And here you can see that we are able to log in and see the other members within our branch. There are still a few problems with this approach. To begin with, the intranet application only shows the other people within the same branch, which means that employees can only see information for people in the same group. Obviously, this could be fixed by changing the underlying code of the application, but this may be costly, time-consuming, and may increase the risk that you introduce new bugs to the code. The second problem is that the majority of commercial applications do not even offer this level of functionality or complexity in the front end, as it would require customization for each branch that you wish to include for authentication. Join us in the next video demonstration to see how we are able to resolve these problems by merging data stored within different branches on different repositories so that a single authentication resource can be used within an application configuration.